Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 501st episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Mr. Brian Johnson. I was a little curious, hesitant maybe to have him on. He is an expert in Amazon advertising, and I was thinking, well, I don't really do that. I don't know how many of my listeners really do that. But as I was talking to the person who was pitching him to me, I realized he's got a good story, and his background was not obvious as to how he got into this. So hearing how he evolved into this, I think is going to benefit you. If you are curious about Amazon advertising, it'll be good too. But I love his gumption, his story, how he got started, how he evolved, what he has built now, and his best practices for any business. Okay, they do apply to you. I'm not on Amazon, so, well, I've got 2 books on Amazon, but I'm not running ads there. So you know what I mean. So I think you'll like him. Take some notes, get ready. A good guy. But one of the points he really drove home was the necessity, the importance of learning sales and marketing. It's one of the final points of the interview. And it's all sales and marketing. All of life is sales. You know, you sell your boss on getting a raise. You sell your spouse on, sell your wife on marrying you. If you're the wife, you sell the guy on why you're not marrying him. I mean, on and on. You sell your kids on why they should brush their teeth, why they should go to bed. The restaurant sells you, it's 20 minutes before we can be seated. Well, how about we get seated a little bit earlier? Yes, you can swap out fries for a salad. It's an extra $1.99. Well, can I get that without the upcharge? Okay, everything is a sale. So that's why I focus there. It's what I help people do better. Okay, because the sales, it's the headline. It's the headline of your ad. It's the subtitle. It's the caption. It's the SEO of the image, of the content, the naming of the video. You got to sell people on slowing their scroll. You got to sell them on clicking the ad, reading the landing page, opting in, opening the email, doing the free trial, doing the $1 trial, taking the upsell. I spoke last week to a group of Keep, Infusionsoft partners, and had an upsell. Sold on my book at a discount, sold an upsell to my Make Every Sale program. And people took me up on it. It's all a sale. Understanding the frame of mind when the prospect is reading your stuff, understanding their frame of mind when they opt in, going for no, right? Continuously offering them something of complimentary, additional value. Hey, would you like extended warranty with that? Would you like lifetime of oil changes? Would you like roadside assistance? Would you like the ceramic coating? Would you like the rust-proof undercoating on your car? I mean, those are common things. Somebody's buying a house. Well, all right. Do you need landscaping? Do you want to do an add-on? Do you want to remodel, before you move in? All of those things are normal and natural upsells. Those are things that people are going to buy in that situation. So offer it to them. Go for no. That's how you increase your margins. I literally was losing $1 or $2 on each book order. I gave them a discount and really just trying to get the opt-ins. But the upsell to the digital course is where all the money came from. Just like, McDonald's, they don't make money on the burgers. They make money, paying a fraction of a penny for the Coke, for the syrup, and, charging you $1, $2, $3, whatever for the soda. I mean, that's where the margin comes in. So you got to understand numbers like that. You got to understand how to get somebody's attention. That's sales, right? That's what I get into in the Sell More of Everything program, sellmoreoferything.com, makeeverysale.com if you just want it on demand. But you got to master this. Brian's going to drive that point home, okay? The the sooner you embrace sales and marketing and the importance and the value and why that's your number one job as a business owner, once you embrace that, things will change for the better. I promise. Now, let's bring on our guest. Brian Johnson. Are you really living in a van down by the river?
It is, yeah. No, actually, at the moment, I'm not by the river, but yeah, it does sometimes feel like, a Chris Farley moment for sure. So,
all right. Whew, I'm glad you knew that one. So you are in an RV. You know, hey, I was in an RV last summer with most of my kids, and we came back with the Rona. All right, so don't do what I did. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we are. We're based out of San Antonio. That's where our house is near San Antonio, between Austin and San Antonio. And we are on a 2-month road trip up to Washington State, making a big loop to see family and national parks.
Very nice.
So it is a good trip for sure.
We kind of did that. We took, Lee, 6 of my 7 kids
on the road.
On the road for 3 weeks. Although my oldest that was on the trip, he was our second oldest. He flew back halfway through. He had to get back to work. So we only had 5 for the whole 3 weeks,
Okay.
But I digress. That's the beauty of today's world, huh? You can, as long as you have an internet connection, you can work from damn near anywhere, huh?
Yeah, I spent a lot of money on my my internet and my cell phone boosters and SIM cards and all that kind of stuff, just to make sure that I could have conversations like this.
Mm-hmm. So you've spent a long time kind of on your own, right? In the Amazon space, you founded some different companies, but is PPC, has that been kind of your jam or e-commerce? And so you had to learn PPC to boost e-commerce. How was that transition or evolution?
Yeah, so I started out originally. I've been in e-commerce for about 14 years. Combination of selling through my own site as well as heavily on eBay. I used to distribute money counters, coin sorters, banking equipment, that kind of stuff. And then I was lured over to Amazon by some friends of mine about 6 years ago. And I get over to Amazon, and it was a lot of, it was a bit messy. About 6 years ago, not a lot of people had a whole lot of advice. There was like one course out there, and I started selling my own products. But then some friends got wind. It's like, hey, wait, you sell on Amazon? Can you help us? Sell more? I'm like, sure. Let me see what I can do. I'm walking in as an amateur too, but I knew 5% more than they did, right? Well, one of the things that I found out pretty quickly is when Amazon started opening up their PPC advertising, their pay-per-click advertising. That would be a great opportunity to promote a product. It was very rudimentary, but at the same time, I'm like, great. Who has the information I need who's got the training? Crickets. Nobody. So I started a Facebook group and said, okay, let's talk to a few people and just kind of collaborate and figure out how do you do this thing, because Amazon didn't have any training. And so I kind of basically started creating my own world from there. That same Facebook group has about 21,000 sellers in it now. Today, just focused on advertising for Amazon. But really what happened was, because I was trying to find the answers, when I found the answers, I'd go and share it back to the group, and then they started expecting me to start having the answers. And that just compounded year over year over year. So I created software to help with advertising, a training course to help with the advertising. And ultimately, people just kept coming back to me and saying, hey, can you coach me, or can you just do it for me? And that's what formed an ad agency and a coaching program and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, ultimately I had to kind of educate the market as I learned, and it just it was a perpetual wheel. You get a little bit of information and somebody wants it and they want some more from you, and you got to research it and figure it out, and kind of had to solve my own problems. And then that's how I ended up specializing in it. It wasn't intentional. I was just trying to solve my own problem.
That's awesome. So, I'm linking to you. So brianrjohnson.com. So those, because your specialty is Amazon sellers, right? So either those that are already doing pretty well that want to get better, or we were talking before we hit record. If somebody if they sell a physical item, certainly retail, they should also be on Amazon doing what you teach, right?
Exactly. Yeah. If they're selling on, brick and mortar, if they are selling, on Walmart, on Shopify, on any kind of e-commerce channel, and they're not selling on Amazon, or as I mentioned earlier, even worse is we work with a number of, quite a few large brands that sell in brick and mortar stores, and then they allow distributors or wholesalers to sell on Amazon. That's a huge mistake, because a number of reasons, as far as risk, lack of control, lack of the ability to really leverage the system properly and really boost sales and magnify the sales on such a large e-commerce channel that it's become now.
Yeah, because people are going to cheapen the brand, huh? And they're going to take shortcuts to make a buck, and the next thing you know, you just shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, at worst on that, usually they simply just don't do enough. They simply just don't care enough in order to put the best foot forward of the brand or each individual product, let alone try to position the product among competitors and really like play the game and really compete well.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig into going back to how you got started, because I think that is applicable to everyone listening, right? Because there's some on this like, oh, I'm a W-2 salesman. I'm going to tune out of this. Like, no, because you've got something interesting in there, even like coaches, speakers, authors. I mean, people that may not be in this space, or they're not going to go there, but this story of how you started, because like they say, the definition of an expert is that you come from out of town and you carry a briefcase.
That is so true.
Yeah. And that was kind of you were, I mean, as long as you're one chapter ahead, you can lead the class.
Right.
And that's kind of where you found yourself.
To a
right?
point. Yeah. I think it was pretty easy, in the early years to, there were very few of us who really understood what was going on. And usually it's because we were collaborating with each other. And so there was a handful of, Amazon PPC experts. Today, every single VA who's had, 2 weeks of training from a brand is now saying, oh, I'm a PPC expert for Amazon. It's like, okay, so now it's like, I'm just one of 10,000. Right. And so where it was pretty easy, it was blue ocean, for me. It was pretty easy because, I had to put in the 10,000 hours. I had to do the work in order to figure out, to test everything. Thankfully, I'm a spreadsheet geek and I'm a research and development geek, where I am going to experiment with things and try to figure out how to break things and make it work. Fortunately, I had that combination of my own brain coming into it. But honestly, it's the pressure of needing to solve my own problems and then having other people wanting me to help them solve their problem too. And just expanding the diversity of the kind of like the sample size. It's one thing to be a brand owner and saying, well, this is my experience, with my blinders on. And then it's another to be working with tens of thousands of brands selling on Amazon, and having that kind of diversity to be able to see every single flavor of what's going on with every single product niche. Pretty much have touched just about everything on Amazon over the years. And just forced into it, forced into just grinding and just learning it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It's like there's good pressure and there's bad pressure. I mean, right. We see all these guys online, pictures of their Lamborghinis and their surfing and like this glorious life. It's like, maybe it's true, right? I think a lot of them it's crap, but,
right.
but those that got there, they went through some crap to get there, right? It's unless you're a trust fund baby, and why do you want to follow those guys? You want to follow people that encountered some adversity and made something of it. If there wasn't big problems to solve, would you be where you are now?
Probably not. I'd probably be, I'd be still sell. I mean, I still do sell products on Amazon, but I'd probably just be a product seller, and I'd be solving my own, and not having to worry about, both the positive and the negative of kind of being in the public eye within this specific, marketplace. But yeah, if there wasn't big problems, then I probably would have been a lot more W-2 mindset than I am now. I've been kind of forced through a certain amount of pain to adapt over time.
So, the old story of, the guy's boat sinks and he's in a life raft. He's praying to God. Like, please save me. And it's like, here comes this, fishing boat. Hey, you need some help? Oh no, God's my savior. Okay. And then storm get worse, a cruise ship. You need some help? No, God, my savior. The helicopter. No, God's my savior. He finally drowns. He's like, God, what happened? He said, well, I sent 3 damn boats to get you. We say no to these obvious things, right? Like, how many times did you have to get slapped around before you go, oh man, there's an opportunity here? Because a lot of people are just head down.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh no, I'm a carpenter. I'm just going to do my own thing. It's like, dude, can you build my deck? Can you build a patio for me? No, I just do my own. Maybe there's something here. I mean, did you see the opportunity right away, or did you have to get slapped around a good bit?
Well, I think I saw the opportunity because there was a gap in the marketplace. There was a lack of something that I needed personally. And so I was trying to solve my own problem. I'm like, okay, well, I knew software. I knew, the technical aspect. I was not a sales and marketing person at all. I had a very, extremely dry personality. I mean, I still do, if you ask any of my business partners. But at the same time, I've come a long way. I've adapted quite a bit. I've had to adapt myself in order to project out more, project confidence and a lot of these things that make it so that people are like, okay, I actually trust it. I see you've got integrity by what you're saying and the actions you take and that kind of thing. But, ultimately I had to, when it came to solutions, I continually had to solve. And of course, on a platform like Amazon that's up and coming, they're constantly trying to introduce new things. That creates new confusion every single time they do it. And the eyes turn around, they look at somebody like me and say, it's like, well, what do you think? It's like, they came out yesterday, it's kind of like, you have to act pretty quick. There's something that somebody has asked me about that before. It's like, have I always been creative and being a creative problem solver? I said, no, absolutely not. But being pushed to have to create something for my own purposes, for my clients' purposes, for my audience's purposes, I had to come up with that. And the more that I did it, the easier it got year over year over year. It's the same thing. They say that about, comedians or creativity, or I'm sure there's a lot of other things, is the more you continue to put pressure on it and the more you work it day after day, year after year, the easier it gets. And so now I find that it's easy for me to see the gaps and the opportunities. Now, whether or not I take action on every one of those, that's a completely different skill set, which I'm still working on.
Right. Well, but I love what you said though about, this dry personality. You're more of you're like an introvert, right? Just hands-on, probably fine if you don't see anybody for a week or a month. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say a couple of days.
Or maybe back in the
day.
I'm
probably on the cusp, yeah.
All right. So or maybe 7 years ago, would you say you were more introverted than you are now?
No, I was actually more extroverted then.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, but I think the difference
extroverted but dry. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's a great combination, but more geek engineers type. But I was
an extroverted geek.
I know, right?
Is that what you're? What is? Are
that
you
sounds annoying, right? That's somebody who's like, get away from me.
Wait a minute.
No, I don't. I don't know. I guess I probably would say that I think early on in my corporate days, I tested, the personality typing. I tested as an extrovert. But now, and maybe it's just me being honest with my personality, as I get older, is, now I test as an introvert versus previously as an extrovert, but I actually find that I project myself a lot better than I used to.
Okay.
So, who knows?
Well, cool. All right. I think what we can still take from that is, typically you see these flamboyant types, high flying entrepreneurs wheeling and dealing, and they're salesmen, right? But extrovert is one thing. It's typically a salesman. Geek though, that's more internal. So those listening, because most people, I talk to entrepreneurs that are trying to grow their business, they're buying software, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, they're very into their thing. And I'm like, man, you got to master sales and marketing. Oh, I could never do sales. I hate sales and marketing, but it can be learned, right? I mean, you've learned how to take your expertise and take it to the world. I mean, was that a hard, steep learning curve for you?
Without a doubt. Yeah. So I actually had a business partner that kind of, it's, I would say that he found me early on where I was the guy who had the information. He needed it for his own business. But then he saw the opportunity to say, okay, this guy's got enough information that we could actually do a lot with this. I had already created software, but we hadn't created a course, hadn't created an agency. And he basically pulled me up. And this is my partner, Brian Burt. And he spent the first couple of years just being frustrated, just trying to pull me out of my shell. And the way he did it is he put me on 500 sales calls and 100 live webinars and just trained, the reserved, nature and the hold back and, the qualifying and all these kinds of things that I would normally do as more of the engineer mindset. And he kind of yanked it out and said, you have this information that's stuck in your head. You've got to get it out there to people who really need it. And you're doing them a disservice and you a disservice. And certainly this business, it's a partnership, from a cash flow standpoint, if you don't help people get what they need. And so I just, I started studying marketing technique and sales technique and just going through the motions and forcing myself. It's kind of like if you had somebody who's never been in sales and you put them in a cold calling, call center, that's painful. I've done that. That's just flat out raw painful if you've never done it before. But if you do it for a year, guess what? You're going to be pretty savvy at it, or you're not going to be there. One of the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
sink or swim.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely don't consider myself a salesperson. However, I definitely learned to study things like buyer behavior, especially in the Amazon product space, where I can actually do coaching and say, this is why your product is not selling as well as it could be, because you're not listening to the shopper. You're not speaking to the shopper. You're not saying, here's the benefit of my product to you. Most of the products that sell on e-commerce, especially on Amazon, are still trying to speak to the search engine that Amazon is, instead of talking to the shopper and saying, this is why my product is better among these other 50 that are surrounding me. And that product positioning, that product differentiation, it's essentially a sales technique. It's a sales and marketing technique, but applying it to something that I'm more comfortable with, which is the, magnifying the product sales.
Yeah, very cool. Would you say, what would you say is the top skill of a business owner now? Is it harder? So let's say, you have sales, you have marketing, you have this research that you do, knowledge of the back end of the Amazon advertising platform, who would be what version of you would be the toughest to replace? The guy running the dashboard, the salesman,
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, certainly something that has been surprisingly, I guess, unique to me. I mean, there's other people who have this also, but something that my reputation for integrity in my specific marketplace has always been strong. And so the knowledge that I have, the strategies that I have, the ability to, run advertising, run marketing for somebody else, the ability to do sales and marketing, all of that can be transferred to somebody else. But integrity is something that can really define you. You're using kind of like the example as far as like, you got the Lamborghini, the flashy Lamborghini. Yeah, they could have gone through some pain, but usually the question, the doubt there is, does this person actually have integrity? Do I believe them? And so that, I think, is something where you want to try to maintain. But as from a skill set,
Well,
Probably what I've.
the reason I ask is people I run across various experts in their field,
Yeah.
right? And like I just dropped our truck off to get some work done on it, and Eric's mechanic shop. Eric's a great mechanic, but there's a bunch of great mechanics out there.
Right.
I'm always telling the owner, your number one job is to market yourself, right? Because no matter how good you get the Amazon dashboard, no matter how good you get at repairing your cars, he can hire a couple of other mechanics. Maybe they're only 90% as good as him.
Right.
He can teach them. He can QC their work, but they're not going to love his business and pour their heart and soul into marketing his business.
No, that is true.
Right. True. But you can get like a passionate diesel mechanic and like, he's going to stay on that truck till it's freaking fixed. Because that's like what lights his fire. Meanwhile, you can go market your business, because I'm always telling them, like, you can bring somebody in like you or me, right? You'll help on the PPC side. I'll help with their messaging or sales scripts. And we're better at that than they are, but it's still their baby.
Right.
We're just beautifying, right. And amplifying their already existing beautiful message. They just maybe haven't quite been able to verbalize it yet.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you on that. Is often the subject matter expert sucks at other things, like actually saying like, okay, here's who I am. Here's actually how to market it, for instance, unless their expertise is in marketing, right?
Right.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was going to say probably the three things that I would focus in on based on my experience, my journey, has been to create systems and processes that are documented. I struggled with that so badly because I didn't want to document it. It's like, I've got it in my head, I can just do it. Yeah, but the next thing is then you have to hire a great team. And that great team needs to execute on something that you've established there. And then the third thing, exactly what you're talking about as far as the passion, as far as whether or not somebody cares about your business as much as you. The third thing on that is making sure that you're asking the people that you have on your team is periodically is, all right, of the job that you're doing, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to do your job, what drains you throughout the day? What energizes you throughout the day? Because if I can identify a task that somebody does that drains them consistently, I'm going to find somebody else that energizes by that same task and have them swap tasks so that they're constantly, so they get most of their day energizes them. So they actually literally like, yes, I have a job, but I actually look forward to doing my job, to executing on it because I have fun with it. It's that diesel mechanic, it's like, well, man, I could, work on, diesel engines every single day of my life. Cool. I want you working on my diesel engine customers. It's aligning that team. And that is something that, it took me probably the last 3 or 4 years to really figure that out. And of course you do that because you make mistakes.
Right. Yeah. I asked my team, at the end of the day, just tell me, what did you accomplish? What obstacles are in your way and what do you need from me?
Right.
And we take it from there.
Yeah.
And do it daily, right? Do it regularly. Otherwise it'll spiral out of control. It's that literally, that stitch in time saves 9, right? Don't wait till they're ready to quit. Yeah. What's going on? Well, I noticed a change lately. And it's something you could have fixed 3 months ago.
Yeah. Ignorance is not going to solve a spiraling death, swirl, it's only going to make it worse,
So how do you document? I mean, is using simple tools like Loom or whatever, make a quick video, or is it super elaborate?
Now we've used probably 30 different tools. It always seems like productivity tools and that kind of stuff. No team ever finds one. It's like, this is perfect for our team, because they always transition to something else. That's just kind of the nature of the tools. But using things, using some kind of a video record, screenshot recording, or, these days, things like Zoom, for instance, you just jump on Zoom, you hit record, screen record, and you just start talking to it. and it's ugly. And then maybe you hand that off to somebody else, like, okay, I suck at documentation. You're really good at documentation. Here's my video. Go document this, put it into something. And then we're going to throw it at the team and say, okay, run through this and see where the holes are, see where it works and where it doesn't. Ultimately, it's the more you do it, the more you build it out, it's going to build consistency. But simply ignoring the problem, simply saying, well, I've got it in my head, you're only hurting your team by not. If you're the subject matter expert, you're only hurting the rest of your team and your company if you are not somehow transferring what you know to something that they can execute on. Because if you think that you're holding on to it because I don't want anybody else to become as much of an expert as me, otherwise I might not be as important. It's like, well, guess what? Your ego is going to take the hit, and eventually it's going to happen anyway, except it's probably going to financially hurt you, as opposed to if you solve it now and you execute well, then you're going to be able to help a lot of other people. And that's what you're going to get known for, is not your expertise, but because you actually did something with the expertise.
Yeah, people always say, well, Wes, what if I hire you and you train all my people, and then they leave? And I'm like, well, what if you don't train them and they stay?
I actually have that as a poster in my office. That is absolutely true. Is like, do you want to be, the big fish in a poison pond? It's like, no. You want to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, that can move faster than you, that can create their own ideas. And you can sit back and say, okay, I'm moving into founder role and I'm okay with that.
Right.
Otherwise you're basically just created your own job and you're stuck in it for as long as you allow it to happen.
Yeah. How long did it take you to go from that hands-on frantic to feeling like, all right, I am a founder now. I own a business. The business doesn't own me.
Right. So I would say when we created when I created the software, I had to, okay, here's all the rules the software is going to follow. Here's how everything's going to look. I basically had to design everything and then hand it off to programmers. When I created the training course, I basically had to go through and do, the video, a video of every single topic and outline and all that kind of stuff. Subsequent versions of that, I had a bigger team to be able to help organize it, project management, that kind of thing. When the agency came around, I was essentially running operations and my partner was running sales and marketing. And through pain, I was losing clients because we weren't executing consistently and fast enough on the areas that we knew we could do. We just didn't have, even with the small team that we had. And so ultimately what we ended up doing, we ended up hiring a CEO consultant, Alex Charfin out of Austin, Texas. And he basically pinned me in the corner and said, like, this is where you're screwing up. This is how you need to turn around. Basically you need to get this taken care of from an operations standpoint. Otherwise you guys are going to be gone in the next 6 months. And so it was kind of that, the come to Jesus, conversation. And so we forced ourselves to start documenting. We pulled in people who were specifically hired to help us document, even on a temporary basis. And eventually we got there and things got better. Things improved. We got more consistent. Now we're known for our consistency. We're known for an awesome team environment and being able to execute on, the systems that we have. But it was extremely overwhelming, extremely painful the first couple of years, very uncomfortable for me. And I was forced to grow. And so anybody who really wants even a decent lifestyle business or wants to avoid the pain of having it all collapse at some point, they've got to grow. They've got to go through some kind of pain to take care of the basics to get, like I said before, you get it off of one. If you got one person on it, that's a single point of failure. They get hit by a bus, your whole business is gone. And so that is probably the greatest risk, because after a while, when you start having employees and those employees have families, you start realizing it's like, oh, I've got 10, 20, 50, 100 families that I'm feeding. I can't screw this up now. It's too much at risk. Not even for me personally, So it's just a case of you always have to continue to grow. You always have to adapt, and you'll always have to recognize, what, I'm not the person who's best suited to execute on this aspect of my business, even though I thought I could wear all the hats. Not going to happen.
When did you make that transition from employee to business owner? What were you doing? What was your last W-2 job?
My last W-2 job was, what was that? It was actually about 9 years ago. I actually had a W-2 job. And that was mainly just because I had started over on e-commerce, and I had built up a software previous company, and the company that the software was built for, we were doing really well with the software, but then that company collapsed. And of course, there was no need for the software anymore. And so ultimately I had to suck it up and eventually, support my family. So I had to get a W-2. And that was extremely painful because I had already mentally made the switch. Like, okay, I'm full-time entrepreneur 14 years ago. Prior to that, I was in Fortune 500 W-2 for, 2 decades. And that's what that's all I knew. But I was always fighting the urge of like, I really want to be doing my own thing. I'm always, trying to hustle on the side and on the weekends. That's not going to go away. If you're doing that, if you're doing nights and weekends, you're trying to figure out how can I hustle? What's the business aspect, sales, marketing, all that kind of stuff. Learn sales for sure. For number one, learn sales. Number two, learn marketing. And then number three, learn how to hire a team that can execute on all the stuff that you think that you're the expert at that you can hand off.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you build a phenomenal team around you. But most people, like you had mentioned earlier, is most people, they don't have the sales chops.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pair the engineers with the sales guys and then blend them together, in order for the whole thing to work.
So how did you find your partner? Right, because
he found me. Yeah, his story is that because he was selling products on Amazon, and he was frustrated with the advertising side of it. So he started asking around the community, who do you know that's really good at Amazon advertising? They didn't mention me. They mentioned somebody else. And then he asked, who'd you learn from? Okay. And then they point to somebody else. Who'd you learn from? And he kept on asking that question, and it kept on coming back to me. So he just tracked me down. And at the time, it's like I was doing an hourly coaching session for, I don't know, it was like $35 or $50. And we kind of debate as far as what it was per hour, right? And
so basically nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Compared to the rates that we could easily charge today, he was basically nothing at the time. And he's like, wow, this guy is a serious engineer geek who really knows everything there is to know about this particular topic. He goes, I know the sales and marketing. He came out of, the Russell Brunson school. And so he knew exactly how to create the webinars and the sales funnels and all that kind of stuff. And so he's like, hey, tell you what, I've got this idea. What do you think? Within 2 weeks, he flew from Chicago down to Austin with a film crew in order to film our promotion videos for our first training course.
Nice.
One we hadn't even created yet. I hadn't created yet, but he knew I knew it.
Right.
And then he went through a whole lot of pain just to try to make sure that I was pulling everything I knew out of my head and getting it onto paper.
Mm-hmm.
That was a struggle, but he knew that it needed to get done. And we're both certainly happier for going through, both of us, going through the pain.
Yeah.
Him pulling me up and me saying like, I'm uncomfortable with this transition, but ultimately, in hindsight, I'm like going, it needed to be done.
Yeah.
Suck it up, Brian.
Well, and I mean, you became easy to find and easy to choose because you had put in,
absolutely,
3 years, 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I was always helping the community. I was always, I was always the go-to person. It's like, if you had a hard problem, come to Brian,
Right.
because he could figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's
but
that 5-year overnight success, right?
exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah. Um, but certainly I wouldn't have, I guess, within the community, I've got name recognition, right? Outside the community, they could care less who I am. And I'm okay with that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Even though I want to try to reach people who are, the big, the brick and mortar brands and that kind of stuff, who've never heard of me and don't care who I am. But so that's a different challenge there from a sales and marketing standpoint. But at the same time, if it wasn't for my business partner pulling me up and getting me out there and forcing me in front of the camera and forcing me in front of audiences that got bigger and bigger and bigger, not enough people would have known who I am.
Yes.
In order to get the information that I had for them. But it's not about me, really. It's
right.
about,
but you wouldn't have been worthy of being known.
True.
If you didn't have the expertise.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it cuts all ways, well, it's all who you know, not what you know. Well, bullshit, because what you know helps you expand who you know.
Right.
So, and
ultimately, the who you know is ultimately going to point you back to
yes,
the person who knows what they know.
Yeah. But I mean, the people worth knowing, that they're worth knowing usually because of the people they know. And the reason you need to know who they know, because those people can get shit done.
Yep. Ivy League College 101.
Yeah.
Your job here is not to get an education. It's to network with as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, put in the time. I wrote this big green book back there. Yep. I looked around like, is there an Infusionsoft book? No. Okay, I guess I'll write an Infusionsoft book. I never wrote a book. And I was not the most technical guy. I literally learned as I went. I'd used the software for 4 years, but I'm not a techie guy.
And depending on when you started on that book, that Infusionsoft was not the greatest platform to work with either.
Yeah, but it's, hey, but there's a niche. Right? There's people that use it. Nobody written a book on it. I was not the most technical. I got better as a result of writing it.
Yep.
And made a name for myself, and I mean, find a need and fill it, right? Isn't that what Zig Ziglar says? You can get whatever you want if you help enough people get what they want.
Yeah. I think it was a movie, Robots, I think, like see a need, fill a need.
Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just do it. So cool, man. So those folks that have a need to get mo better selling their stuff on Amazon, you're the man with a plan, huh?
Yeah, I've got a few plans. I've got my systems, my frameworks. Yes. So it's not just the plan, but I've got it all documented. I've got a team behind me. So yeah, it's an organized plan.
Nice. So I mentioned it earlier, but it's brianrjohnson.com.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So should they go anywhere in particular or just start looking around and see what tickles their fancy?
They can see my mug. I do have links on there. Certainly my flagship would be my advertising agency, Canopy Management, of course.
Okay.
For those who sell on Amazon or wanting to sell on Amazon, advertising and marketing, product positioning, that is our highest focus. But yeah, if somebody wants to simply just reach out to me or an easy way to contact me, then Brian R. Johnson is brianrjohnson.com is an easy way. Maybe not easy to remember unless they know AC/DC or any actors or but it's
That's not hard. Brian R. Johnson, man, come on.
Right, I know. Well, there's a lot of Brian Johnsons in the world, so yeah, it's brianrjohnson.com. Certainly an easy way to reach out to me. Glad to have a conversation.
Yep. Very cool. Well, enjoy your trip. I guess if you come through SoCal, man, we could have done this in person, but
yeah, not this trip. I think I'll probably stay out of. I'm going to try to get off the West Coast here for the next year until things kind of politically settle down.
Yeah.
They kind of recover some of their downtowns a little bit. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully Southern California is in much better shape than some of these cities up here.
Yeah. Amen.
But
Crazy, yeah.
yeah, so I'll be back in May. I'll be back down in the Austin, San Antonio area. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Very nice. All right. BrianRJohnson.com. Well, man, thanks for coming on the show. It's been great.
Wes, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate talking with you.
All right, man. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
He was lured to Amazon by his friends, and it was a bit messy. It's true for all of us. Really, when you dig in, you look at somebody's story, how they got started, it was a bit messy. 21,000 sellers in his group now. What drains you, what energizes you, you need to figure that out. If you have a brick and mortar store, get your butt on Amazon, right? So many good things. He had to learn to project confidence. I've got an article on my site. I'm covering this in this 5-week course I'm doing for this group of 21 sellers, technology salespeople. These are partners, so these are solopreneurs, small business owners, and I get into confidence with them. Zig Ziglar always said selling is a transference of a feeling, and that feeling is confidence. That's what people ultimately are buying. So I want to drive that home, right? That's important. He had to solve problems in an evolving space. It's always an evolving space. The only thing constant is change, right? He was not always a creative problem solver. So the more he did, the easier it got. I always tell people, don't wait till you feel better to get going. Get going and you'll feel better. Motion beats meditation. You're majoring in the minors. You're putting off what you need to do. If you got to eat a frog, there ain't no use in looking at it. And if you got to eat more than one, eat the biggest one first. I love what he said. You're doing a disservice to the marketplace if you don't do more to get the word out. His partner pulled him out of his shell via hundreds of sales calls and webinar. See, he felt better by the action. Zig Ziglar always said, what was it? Do, become, have, I think. Is that right? No, or become, do, have. I always said to become, to have what professional salespeople have, you have to become a professional salesperson. Or to become a professional salesperson, you must do what professional salespeople do. Zig Ziglar always said, you got to become first. And that's one of the few things I've ever taken a little bit of an opposite approach from him. You do what those you aspire to become, you do what they do. All right? If it's the work habits of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Tiger Woods, whatever, you follow their regimen, then you'll become them. Then you'll have what they have. Do become, have. So I see too many people that are professional students, professional conference attendees, professional book buyers, but not professional readers. And if they're a professional reader, they're not a professional implementer of what they have read. Motion beats meditation. Get out there and make some mistakes. It can be scary, it can be daunting, I get it. That's why I offer my training programs, my consulting, my coaching. 24 years now I've been on my own. 27 years doing something in sales and entrepreneurship. So let me help shorten your learning curve, okay? Either through the private coaching or the group sellmoreofeverything.com. Avail yourself of that, and I promise you will sell more of everything. You'll sell more, faster, at higher margin with less stress, and a lot more fun. Come join us. Now go sell something.